Hi, this is Leanne Fleming, and we're here today with Chris Ryan, President of Fusion Marketing Partners. He's going to tell us about the first pillar of unstoppable marketing and sales, the compelling brand promise. Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Happy to do that, Leanne, and welcome everyone. Right, Fusion Marketing Partners, we exist to do basically three things for our clients. One, create massive awareness. Two, generate qualified leads. And three, optimize revenue generation. I'm sure everybody is interested in all three of those things. So why am I and our company uniquely qualified to do this? Well, I've had 25 years of senior marketing experience. You can see the kind of companies I've worked for on the screen. I've been voted one of the top U.S. marketers by Target Marketing Magazine, for 3 years. I'm a frequent writer and speaker on marketing and technology topics. And the new book, which you can get at Amazon or Barnes & Noble, is called How to Create an Unstoppable Marketing and Sales Machine.
Well, this first pillar is just one of a series that you're doing about the 4 pillars of unstoppable marketing and sales. Can you tell us about the series?
Sure. The series, there's an overview introduction already on our website at the fusionmarketingpartners.com website. As you can see, the 4 pillars are a compelling brand promise, an informative and engaging website, effective pull marketing strategy, and finally, an optimized marketing and sales model. We'll have video casts on the other 3 pillars. This is the first in the series coming up shortly.
Terrific. So for this one, we're talking about a compelling brand promise. Can you tell us what the rules are for doing that?
Sure. Here are some of the rules, and this is just some of them. Obviously, there's a lot to go through to create this. It's not easy, but here are some of the rules that you need to keep in mind. First of all, whether you're talking about a brand promise, and some people call this a value proposition, it's your choice on the terminology. But the point is, keep it simple. Don't try to brand too many things. For example, don't try to brand a company, a division, a product family, and a product name. That's too many levels of abstraction, as I like to say. Try to keep the naming conventions to as few as possible. If possible, make your company name your product name as well. That's so many fewer things to brand. Secondly, build your brand from the inside out. I'm going to offer you a white paper at the end of this free white paper about branding, and there's a whole section on building your brand from the inside out. In other words, what the true nature of your company is. Third, everyone needs to be able to articulate the brand in 3 ways. And this is not just true for marketing and sales, but also for the other parts of your organization. You need a very short tagline that says exactly what you do. This we call directly the brand promise. Secondly, you need a 10-second shout-out, and we call this the drive-by. In other words, if you're stopped at a red light and somebody yells at you right before the light turns green, what does your company do? That's the 10-second message. And then we do a 30-second elevator pitch. And we always present this to our clients in something called a messaging platform. So the branding statement is codified, captured in a messaging platform along with the rest of the shout-out and the elevator pitch. And you use this messaging platform then to drive all of the future copy, whether that be collateral material, website copy, sales messages, et cetera, et cetera. So you get to reinforce your brand over and over and over again.
And what are some of the branding principles that you feel are the most important?
Well, as you folks can see on the slide, there are 6 principles that we advocate that you follow when you're doing your branding. First of all, the brand must differentiate you. If it's like anybody else, it's not considered a good brand. If it's, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. It's something we call it a Me Too brand. So it's got to make you stand out. Secondly, it has to offer a clear and compelling benefit. That's why we use the name brand promise instead of value proposition and some of the other terminology you use, because it must connote a benefit to the person who is reading the brand statement. Third, it needs to be specific. Overly broad brand statements like "we do everything well" or "we've got the best customer service" or "the lowest prices" can only work for very large companies who have proven that over time. So make it as specific as possible. Your brand needs to be easily understood quickly and not by a graduate level college type reader. Your brand has to be congruent. And what I mean by congruent, it has to actually reflect what the customer is going to experience when they do business with you. So again, let's take that customer service. We've got the best customer service in town. To me, that's usually a lousy brand because anything that you do that doesn't measure up to that brand when the customer actually works with you is going to be counterproductive. And then finally, your brand must be jealously guarded. And by this, I don't mean guarded from the competition. What I mean is it has to be guarded within your organization so that you don't go and have counter messages that are not congruent and in line with the brand statement, the brand promise. You've got to make sure that all of your copy, and that's again why in the previous slide I talked about creating a messaging platform and having that be the guide for all of your marketing and sales materials.
Well, that leads us to some other mistakes to avoid in branding. What would those be?
Well, this is going to be kind of a reinforcement of what we talked about earlier. The first big mistake, tattoo this one on your forehead. Do not be a Me Too brand. In other words, a brand that sounds like 3 other companies in your market space. Uniqueness is critical in branding. Second, and we talked about this one, branding too many things at once. Trying to brand a company, a division, a product line, and a product name. Most of us don't have the kind of budgets that can really do this well. So the more you can compress the naming conventions in your organization, the better off you're going to be. The third one, I see this all the time, a failure to be honest about your strengths and weaknesses. So you really have to look at yourself as a company, and the congruency is so important because if you go out and market yourself a certain way and then the marketplace finds out that you are not what you claim to be, you're going to be in big trouble, and it will, again, be counterproductive. But I also, there's a kind of a counter point to this one now. I like to talk to my clients and say, tell me what you're going to be like in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, in 5 years, and let's start branding you as to what you're going to be, and then you have to live up to it, and as long as you're willing to do that. So do look into the future, but don't embellish or exaggerate too much. The next one is kind of critical too. Don't box yourself into a branding corner. One of the things that you do when you say, remember I talked about the importance of being unique. You really need to be unique in your brand. One of the problems when you're really unique is when you tell somebody exactly what it is you do to a finite level, you're telling them everything you don't do at the same time. So be clear about that. So if you define your brand so narrowly and you really do a good job of selling it, then you're defining your market very narrow as well. So there's a careful blend between being too aggressive and too broad and being too narrowly focused. And then finally, this is another one that we see all the time. Folks that settle for a mediocre brand out of fear. They don't want to upset the apple cart of their company. Perhaps the founders may not go along with the new brand. Perhaps you can't sell it to the executive team, so you basically are afraid to do that. And resignation, you just say, well, we'll just stick with what we already have. This is too hard to do. It is difficult, but I promise you that if you do this, and then you follow the other 3 pillars that we're going to talk about in the next few weeks, you're going to get, just like I said, massive increases in awareness, in leads, and then in revenue.
And Chris, you have, for download for our listeners, you have a white paper. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Basically, this white paper, it's called 6 Steps to Position Your Company for Greatness, actually goes into what I'm talking about today, but in greater detail. I think it's about 12 pages, a pretty easy read. But again, if you like what you heard today, download that white paper, share it with your executive team, and it'll do you a lot of good. And you can find it right at the Fusion Marketing Partners website. And then also I put my email address up there if someone wants to get in touch with me, you have additional questions or want to talk about how this could apply to your company, cryan@fusionmarketingpartners.com.
So check out www.fusionmarketingpartners.com. Check out the downloadable white paper for free, and come back next time for the next presentation, which will be on the 2nd pillar of unstoppable marketing and sales.
Thank you, Leanne.